March 19th, 52 p.m. This is Hannibal here from the HannibalTV.com with my weekly Wrestling Observer newsletter review. I will tell you all the news I found interesting in this week's Observer. In the Wednesday Night War yesterday, AEW more than doubled NXT's rating. They won with a 0.35 to a 0.16. It seems like WWE has pretty much given up on trying to be competitive with AEW now, from what I can tell, because that's just a horrible beating. WrestleMania will be taking place, I guess, from multiple locations, according to Dave Meltzer, and it might not even be live. They might be taping it in advance. Apparently, they're going to be taping a lot of episodes in advance because restrictions could be worse within the next few days. We see our freedoms being taken away more and more every day lately, so they're getting a lot of stuff in the can, taping as much as possible, as soon as possible, mostly in Orlando. They're also scrapping the Andre the Giant Battle Royal and the Women's Battle Royal matches from WrestleMania because of having so many people in the ring. And let's be honest, nobody really cares about those Battle Royals anyways. UFC, as we saw with the UFC Brazil show, it's tough to go with the crowd, but it's even harder with wrestling without a crowd because it looks a lot more phony when there's no crowd, for one thing. That's the biggest thing that stands out to me. If you're a hard-hitting wrestler, that's one thing, but if you're more of a entertainment style wrestler, it becomes very obvious that it's all just a performance. I guess Brock Lesnar lives in Canada now, in Saskatchewan. So some people were wondering, will he still be able to make it to WrestleMania? He is an American citizen. So even though they've closed the borders now for US and Canada, which sucks because it canceled my next 4 interview trips, he is an American citizen, so there shouldn't be any issues with him getting across the border. Not that anyone really cares about his match this year. It's a pretty crappy match. I think the match people care about the most is Roman Reigns against Goldberg, and to a lesser extent, Edge versus Randy Orton. But let's be honest, Edge and Randy Orton, they're upper level mid-card guys, but I wouldn't really say they're, maybe on a B show they'd be a main event, but I don't know if they're John Cena level stars or Brock Lesnar level stars or Goldberg level stars. And I don't even know if Edge, I'm sure Edge is going to do well, but he's hardly wrestled in the last decades. So, but the good thing is, if you're taping in front of no fans, you can redo stuff if you screw it up. Shane McMahon reportedly was only paid as a performer in 2019 and made $2,082,011 for his general manager of SmackDown position and the 15 matches he had. So he made pretty good pay. Colonel Quayle says, big mistake having Stone Cold on Raw with no crowd. I thought it was lame too, and the game show type thing, it's just lame. He only comes back every now and then, and you watch that and it was lame. So do you really want to see him again? It just, I don't know. I didn't like it. Fragrance Fiend says happy for Luke Harper and his freedom. Luke Harper, of course, joined AEW. The median salary of WWE's 952 front office employees for 2019 was $113,000. $752. Apparently, according to Dave Meltzer, there's a lot of concern about WWE opening an NXT branch in Japan. A lot of the companies there feel WWE will be able to get a lot of the higher level Japanese talent if they open up the outpost in Japan, which I think the most recent talks have been with All Japan to either buy them out or work some type of a deal with them. For their recent canceled shows in Toronto, Youngstown, Ohio, and Pittsburgh, it was actually, I guess, the decisions of the local governments to actually cancel them rather than the WWE's. EMM Crash just tipped me $5 and says, love the channel. Thanks for your work. Well, thank you. Much appreciated. Dave Meltzer points out that in his experience trying to cancel his Southwest airline flight to Tampa, he could not get a refund, but he did get a credit to use on a future flight if he used it in 1 year. And there is a rumor going around, and it's a false rumor, that it's very easy to get refunds and flights sorted out. I said this yesterday. I'll say it again today. It's not. Delta, I got not only flights for myself in recent months, but for talent, for stuff that's now canceled because of all this. Delta charged me a $200 US change fee to change a Delta flight, which is almost $300 Canadian because the Canadian dollar sucks right now. And it's the same situation. You can get flight credits, but you're not getting full refunds. Same with hotels. The hotels, some of them, like the Marriott in Tampa, did end up refunding me, thank God. But others, I was only able to get credits for that. I was trying to be organized and prepay hotels, buying them on Expedia. And by the way, even to get through to Expedia, expect to wait about 4 to 5 hours to just get a person on a line. So I'll just say it again. It's a myth that everyone's being really easy about changing stuff around. It isn't that easy. I can tell you personal experience. Meltzer's telling you as well. AEW is going to be running their TV tapings from Dali's place in Jacksonville with no fans for right now. I know on AEW last night, they did have some wrestlers in the crowd, which added another dimension to it because a lot of people pointed out for the WWE shows, they just had the empty seats, which it seems like they might be changing things up for WrestleMania, having matches outside of the Performance Center, which I think is a good idea. And who remembers the WCW White Castle of Fear segments and all these crazy segments? Actually, AEW, I saw this today, did one with Lance Archer and Jake the Snake, like a vignette out in the woods. He's wrestling somewhere in the woods. That is creative. I like that. Why is WWE being so uncreative, just having matches in a performance center with no crowd when you can actually have an excuse to mix things up? I don't know. But it looks like they might try and mix it up for WrestleMania. There's a new Chris Benoit celebrity autopsy documentary that came out on March 15th. It was called Reelz Beats Celebrity Autopsy Special on Chris Benoit. If anyone has a link to an online version of it, please put it in the comments. I want to watch it. Dave Meltzer, I'll tell you some of his notes about what he said about the show. Dr. Michael Hunter, an expert in the field that's used by Reelz for all of their autopsy shows, went through Benoit's autopsy report and interviewed different people. His conclusion was the same as many who followed the case, that it was a cocktail of different drugs such as steroids, Xanax, and hydrocodone combined with CTE and major depression that led to this tragedy. Benoit did have very high levels of testosterone, and normal therapeutic levels of Xanax and hydrocodone in his system. His level of serum testosterone was said to be 10 times the level of a normal human being at the time of his autopsy. Nancy had both Xanax and hydrocodone in her system at the time of her death, but not in large quantities. It was noted that the testing for her wasn't perfect because by the time authorities got into her house, it had been several days since she had died, and decomposition had already began to occur. The air conditioner was off, and it was the summer in Georgia. One thing that is notable, I guess, according to Meltzer here, is Nancy was tied up and brutalized, and she was either drugged or passed out from something before she was tied up, as there was no signs of trauma on her body, like someone that would have been struggling to avoid being tied up. And it's not very conceivable that she would willingly allow herself to be tied up without fighting back. And she, from the stories I've heard, she could be definitely a feisty person. So I don't think she would willingly let herself get tied up either. Daniel was also drugged to where he was completely out of it when Chris snapped his neck. The Nancy murder appears to have been premeditated. Nancy had passed out. Daniel's murder was also premeditated, according to this autopsy report. The fact that the deaths and the suicides were all premeditated and took place over the course of a weekend and not one night ruled out momentary roid rage, which is true. A lot of people thought he could have snapped being on all those steroids. Some people say roid rage isn't a thing. Working as a bouncer for many, many years, I can tell you roid rage is a thing. Not only dealing with people that like clients that are on them, but bouncing coworkers and security coworkers, you know, when they're on stuff where they tell you, and they definitely get more aggressive for sure, and less patient before they'll become in a violent situation. The other thing is that after Chris killed Nancy and Daniel, but prior to him killing himself, he did try to make flight arrangements for his WWE pay-per-view match. So that's something new that came out that is a little bizarre. He was still attempting to try and switch the flights around so he could make his WWE match, which that would have been interesting for sure. UFC fighters are still going to have to go through drug testing, as well as Olympians, even during this coronavirus time. They're still insisting that the Olympics are going to take place in Japan. Somebody wrote me that was at the Alabama show I discussed earlier this week, where a wrestler was attacked. And I will tell you this witness's report, since the video that is online does not show like everything that happened in the attack. This guy's name is Kyle. He says, "Hi, Hannibal. I came to write you about the fan attack on the manager. The fan was acting out of line, even going as far as yelling at other wrestlers. The attack took place after the first intermission from the show. The event was in a gym in Jasper, Alabama, nearly 30 miles west of my hometown. From what I witnessed, the fan said something nasty towards the wrestler's manager, to which the manager herself called the fan out, and then the fan rushed and attacked her. The wrestler then jumped towards his manager in defense and was attacked by the fan's boyfriend, from what I witnessed. At that point, the rest of the wrestlers And this is where the camera stops. He says the rest of the wrestlers from the back came out, and there was only one security guy who broke up the fight between the fan's boyfriend and the other wrestler. Once they were separated, the promoter announced they were going to have a 5-minute intermission. Needless to say, the fan and her boyfriend had charges filed against them, and they got arrested. That is what happened. So thanks, Kyle, for letting us know what happened with that fan attack in Alabama. Back to the Wrestling Observer review. As I've already reported, the XFL suspended the rest of their season. They are paying the players the rest of their downside guarantee. Most of the XFL players were making $27,000 a year. Everyone expects the XFL to come back next year. MLW ran a TV taping in Tijuana March 13th before 4,300 fans. MLW Chief Executive Officer Court Bauer announced that he is shutting down all further cards for at least 45 days. His reason given was he watched SmackDown and he didn't think the empty arena setting for wrestling worked, so he'd rather just shut down. The Nashville Fairgrounds, a legendary wrestling venue, was demolished on March 16th, so no more wrestling there. Alberto El Patron told a TV station in Mexico he's going to be back with WWE this summer. WWE is denying this. Apparently, he also made the same claims last year and didn't return to WWE. I highly doubt after that match with Tito Ortiz that he'd want to fight MMA again. Khabib is training for a fight as if it's going to happen. He's supposed to be fighting next month. I guess the actual numbers for the March 7th UFC show in Las Vegas at the T-Mobile Arena were 9,959 paid with 4,247 comps and a $2,742,906.34 total gate. I'll answer a couple questions on here. Larry Viscos had tried to watch AEW without a crowd. It was awful. I'm done with it. Motor Sash, did I ever meet Vince McMahon? Yes. When I was doing WWE. Actually, I was just talking about Chris Benoit. The most memorable meeting I had with Vince McMahon was when I was actually talking to Chris Benoit. For some reason, Chris Benoit, and I always found this weird because when I was being used as a WWE extra, I was in Stampede Wrestling for the most part in the between 2004 to 2006. And Chris Benoit, even when he was in the WWE, still followed Stampede Wrestling as an independent organization. And he even, this is even shocking, like, in those days, message boards were popular, and he was even following the Stampede Wrestling message boards. Maybe because he was close with TJ, Harry, and Ted. I don't know, but he would always ask me when I was back there about Stampede Wrestling stuff. He was one of the guys that would talk to me. And I was talking to Chris Benoit, and Vince McMahon came up, introduced himself to me, said, "I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I have to talk to Chris right now." So that was my most memorable, where he actually introduced himself to me. Other than that, I met him, I think almost every time I was an extra, I met him. But like, I think just because he interrupted us, he actually like introduced himself to me. The other times it was like more, he was like being polite, saying hi, but he never like said, "Hello, my name is Vince McMahon," or anything like that. And he meets so many wrestlers. He would never have any recollection of meeting me. Motor Sash says WWE should do a Bruiser Brody special on the network. I don't think they ever will. Who knows? Carlos Colon is in the Hall of Fame. He played a big part in the cover-up of that murder. I don't know if they'd want to go to something that commercial. Al Hershen says the California governor orders all 40 million residents to stay at home to limit outbreak. Ricky Pax, and I answer this every day. Like, have I been approached by AEW? No, I have not. Don't, like, I'm sorry, guys, but message them about that. They obviously have no interest in me. And I sent them my wrestling resume when I first heard about them. I told Jim Ross, who is an advisor there, I was interested in wrestling there. There's not much more I can do than that. They know how to contact me. And for everyone that was saying that I should have done the NWA Contender Series, I told you guys this. When they first announced it, like last fall, I did like send them my application, just like everyone else did. For whatever reason, I'm like blackballed, and like I actually liked being a reporter. I'm okay with that, but the fact of the matter is, I'm blackballed for whatever reason, because I'm sorry, but I could offer a lot to a company, but like otherwise, I'll do my own thing. I'm actually being pretty successful right now. Don't do drugs, kiddos. EMM Crash says that has to do with Benoit. FM the Barbarian says Sullivan, my son. Mr. Antonio 2005 says great job on the Adrian Adonis daughter interview. Any other interviews on the horizon? Well, as I said, I had 4 trips planned to Arizona, California, which apparently is on lockdown right now, Nevada, and Tampa, Florida, and they've all been canceled. I am going to try and get at least one Skype interview a week during this time. So, yeah. Ralph Vaquero says stay healthy. We're going crazy here in Nevada. Let's see here. One more question. MRRED says he's disappointed AEW is not contacting me. Now, here's the thing. Another thing about AEW. I've never met any of the executives. I almost had a match with Cody Rhodes, but there was a conflict with his Arrow schedule back in the summer of 2018. Maybe if that match had happened, things would be different, but unfortunately, I never met those guys. Comic Mike says I'd be an asset to any company. Cowboy Nation, maybe they think because I'm a journalist, they think I'm a dirt sheet writer. Well, long before I was ever a journalist, I was a wrestler. I was offered a WWE contract in 2009. It was rescinded because at the time I had a health issue, and I really think it's the health issue, even though I've been cured since 2013, and there's really good cures for it out there now. People still paint me with the brush of having a medical issue, even though I'm perfectly healthy, perfectly strong, can run 2 hours at a time. I'm sure my weight's going to go down, but I am over 290 pounds right now. My chop would be an asset to any company. Richard Storm says, Ricky Rodriguez, how is Canada doing with the coronavirus outbreak? There's people acting like World War III is going on, when I don't know how we could ever handle like a serious crisis like a world war again. Or could you imagine? Obviously, a lot of people know I'm obsessed with UFOs. Anyone that ever think people could handle the truth about UFOs, just look at how much people are freaking out over this virus. Like, how could they ever handle that there's like beings out there that are more advanced than us? It would be pretty funny to see how crazy people would go if that ever came to light. Anyways, thanks for all your comments and questions, guys. I got to go for a run in a few minutes here. Just going to finish my coffee, grab a handful of ephedrine, and hit the road.